1 Peter chapter 5, verses 5 through 6 says, "All of you be submissive to one another and be clothed with humility. For God resists the proud, but gives grace to the humble. Therefore humble yourselves under the mighty hand of God, that he may exalt you in due time." Now, it's probably true of every generation, but it's especially true of our own generation. We bristle at authority. You can call it egalitarianism, call it feminism, or individualism, or Marxism. It is all the poison of rebellion, right? Rebellion against God's good gift of authority and hierarchy. The good gift that God has written into the very DNA of this world, right? I always remind you, this is God's world. When you create a world out of nothing, you can set the rules, but this is God's world. It's His prerogative, and this is how He has made it. Now, Peter speaks into this anarchic lust, this rebellious impulse in all of our hearts. He speaks into this a command and a promise. He exhorts us, saying, "Humble yourselves, be submissive to one another, be clothed in humility." That is the command, right? Those are the marching orders. But he also gives a promise for us to trust in, so that we can, in fact, obey those marching orders. And the promise that he gives, it is a double-sided promise. It is this: God resists the proud, right? That's the pointy side. But he gives grace to the humble, right? He resists the proud, but he gives grace to the humble. So let us consider the pointy side of this promise. How does God resist the proud? God does this in many ways, but one way in particular that I want us to focus on this morning is this. God resists the proud by giving them up as prey to their own appetites. Right? God resists the proud by giving them up as prey to their own appetites. He gives the proud up to what they sinfully desire, and it only results in further corruption and further sorrow. He lets his arrogant creatures learn the error of their way by giving them over to anarchy. Right? He lets the stubborn toddler touch the hot stove. Right? He gives them over to that. Think here of the prodigal son. The prodigal son was a scoundrel of a son. He took his inheritance while his father was still alive, remember. He broke out from beneath his father's authority and squandered it within a few years. He spent it on his lusts and ended up in a pig pen longing for a bite of what the pigs were eating. Right? The Lord resisted him by handing him over, right, to his reckless arrogance. But God, He resists not only rebellious children, He also resists, believe it or not, He also resists women. Right? He also resists rebellious wives. Right? I know you're not supposed to speak about these things. Women don't have sins, apparently, according to our broader culture. You're not supposed to speak about this, but I am a pastor, and I love you, and so I will speak about these things. But the fact is, and you yourself know this, divorce is rampant in our own day. And divorce is, as many studies have shown, by and large initiated by women. Around 70% of divorces, in fact, are initiated by the wife. Without ignoring the fact that some of these divorces have biblical warrant, right? Some men, after all, are unfaithful to their wife, and the Lord grants that women in such a situation of infidelity or abandonment may divorce their husband. But with that said, God knows the majority of these divorces are just plain rebellious. They are not the result of infidelity or of abandonment on the part of the husband, but rather they are the result of a wife attempting to escape the good authority that God has invested in her husband. In our day, we can see why this temptation is very real. Our culture is, after all, heavily feminist, heavily anti-male. It subsidizes the victim mentality, and it promises women freedom, right? But it can only give that freedom which Satan enjoys in hell. It is the cheap and miserable freedom of anarchy, right? Which is no freedom at all. That is not an actual freedom. The Lord resists these prideful attempts at overthrowing God-given authority, and in the case of divorce, the Lord often resists women who unlawfully divorce their husbands by giving them over to wandering, by giving them over to spouse roaming. After divorce, the likelihood of another divorce increases, and then it increases again and again and again until you are like the Samaritan woman, having 5 husbands and now a live-in boyfriend. Right? That was not a coincidence, nor is it uncommon. It was not uncommon in their day. It is not uncommon in our day. God resists this kind of pride by giving women over to a desire that cannot be satisfied. If they will not respect the husband they vowed before God to take as their head, the Lord resists them by consigning them to a life of miserable spouse jumping. And why is that? Well, because again, God resists the proud. Right? He shows no partiality. He resists the proud, whether they be men or women, young or old, rich or poor, in authority or under authority. The Lord resists the proud, but, right, brothers and sisters, fathers and mothers, the Lord gives grace to the humble. Right? That is the positive side of this promise. So let us rather choose this better route of humility and faith, trusting in God's gracious designs and submitting to them even when it's not easy, leaning not on our own understanding, but instead trusting in our merciful and almighty God who resists the proud but gives grace to the humble. So as we reflect on this, let us sing together Psalm 40, I Waited for the Lord, song number 80 in the Cantus.